Welcome to lesson 3 on solving proportions. Now today's lesson is going to be self-paced, which means that you can pause, fast forward, or rewind this video whenever you would like. Okay, so if you feel like you're getting it and you want to fast forward it, go ahead. If you feel like you need to review a problem or some directions, go ahead. Or if you feel like you need to pause the video and ask your teacher a question, go right ahead. Okay, let's get started. A proportion is an equation that states that two ratios are equal to each other. Okay, that being said, if we had a proportion using variables, A over B is a ratio, would be equal to C over D, which is another ratio. Let's look at this with some numbers. The ratio of 4 over 2 is equal to 8 over 4 because they simplify to the same ratio. Now, when we're trying to determine, this is a pretty easy proportion, okay? There are two ratios that are easy to say that they're equivalent, okay? But some are more difficult. So when we're determining whether two ratios form a proportion, we need to look at their cross products. Their cross products are going to be the numbers that are diagonal from each other. For example, here, the 4 and the 30 are cross products, and the 5 and the 24 are also cross products because they're diagonally across from each other. Okay? In a proportion, the cross products are always equal. Okay? So, if we look here at this example that we just reviewed, okay, if A over B is equal to C over D, then A times D has to equal C times B. So let's take a look at that. Okay, A times D would be 4 times 30 has to equal 5 times 24. Well, 4 times 30 is 120. 5 times 24 is 120. Therefore, these two ratios are equal to each other and they form a proportion. Okay? So let's try going ahead and solving one on our own. Let's try this one right here. N over 15 is equal to 24 over 16. Now, some of you may have learned in other math classes that you could just find 16 divided by 15, and then whatever that quotient is, you could then divide 24 by that same quotient. And that process does work. However, later on in the year, when we start working with algebraic equations and expressions, that method is going to be very difficult. So we're going to show you a method here that makes it very easy to solve these problems, okay? Anytime you have a proportion, you can multiply the diagonal numbers. So you can take 15 times 24. Okay, this equals 360. Then you can take that product, so the cross product of those two numbers, 360, and you can divide it by the number that's left over, which in this case is 16. So we can take 360 divided by 16. That actually equals our missing value, which is our n. Okay, well, 360 divided by 16 plugged into our calculator is going to equal out to 22.5, which means that in this case, n equals 22.5. Now, with example 2, I want you to go ahead and try it on your own. Pause this video in order to complete your work, and then press play on the video as soon as you're ready to check your work. Go ahead and pause the video now. All right, let's check our answer for number 2. If you had solved number 2 correctly, you should have found that n is equal to 3.25 or 3 25/100. Okay? If you have a question on number 2, you got it wrong and you're not quite seeing why you got it wrong, please raise your hand and ask your teacher to come over and check your work. Okay? All right, now we're going to go through the last one. Now the last one is a proportions problem using, it's a word problem that we're going to use a proportion to solve. Okay, so if we look at what we have here, it says a 6-ounce package. I'm going to go ahead and underline 6 ounce because that's an important unit. So a 6-ounce package of fruit snacks contains 45 pieces. Well, right away, we know that we can write this as a ratio. Now, whenever you're using proportions or ratios that have two different units, it's really important that you include the units when you're writing that ratio. So let's go ahead and do that. We're going to say that we've got 6 ounces per 45 pieces. So we've got a 6-ounce package that contains 45 pieces. Now we're trying to find how many pieces, so we don't know how many pieces we have. We could expect when we open a 10-ounce package. So again, we're going to write this as a ratio. Okay, now we're going to keep the units the same on the top and on the bottom. So since ounces is our unit on the left top side, on the right top side, we're going to make ounces up here, and we're going to make pieces on the bottom. Okay, now we're looking for how many pieces, so we don't know how many pieces we have. We're going to assign that a variable. I'm going to use variable x that we could find in a 10-ounce package. So I can write, we have X number of pieces in a 10-ounce package because I don't know how many pieces there are. Now, because we have two ratios that have identical units on top and identical units on the bottom, we can set these two ratios equal to each other in a proportion. And we can go ahead and solve for the missing X value. So I'm going to go ahead and multiply the numbers that are diagonal from each other. 45 times 10, which equals 450. And then I'm going to go ahead and divide, whoops, sorry, that's my cat. I'm going to go ahead and divide by the number that's left over. So I'm going to take that 450 and I'm going to divide by the 6 ounces, which is going to give me my missing value, which is X. Here, 450 divided by 6 comes out to be 75. So I know that X is 75 pieces. All right, and I have my answer there. Go ahead and review any questions that you have. See your teacher if you're still confused, and go ahead and begin the practice for lesson 3. Thanks so much. Have a great day.